We're following up Spoopy Month with more Spoopy.
Yes.
Last month we did OG Dead Space, and this month we're doing the Dead Space Remake.
Amazing. You're so articulate.
Thank you.
It was
Spoopy.
It was spoopy. It was put out this year, the year of our Lord 2023, developed by Motive Studio and of course published by EA, because EA. Duh. Most interesting thing that I found out about this game's development was 3 seconds ago, and I found out it was made in the Frostbite engine, which I was not aware of.
We both agreed that made sense, but that's what bugs me about Battlefield 4 is all the lens flares, and like Frostbite has a really good lighting engine, but they fucked it up with Battlefield 4. And it bugs me.
I guess. That is my biggest takeaway from this version of the game is holy shit, lighting. Lighting. So, last month, we both basically said 10 out of 10 best game ever.
Yes.
Not really, but sort of. I kind of had low expectations for this remake. I'm not usually interested in remakes or re-releases very much. They just don't really pique my attention. Most of them don't justify their own existence. This one did. Like, pretty quickly. Like, 2 hours in, tops. I wasn't expecting it to. I knew it got a very warm reception when it came out a couple months ago, but I'm very cynical. I've been burnt out with games the past couple of years, so I was expecting dog shit. And then I played it, and I have a couple of detractors, but not much. This was... It's a toss-up which version of the game I like more.
Yeah.
It's a preference thing. It's not like a technicality thing.
Seriously. Generally speaking, I've been keeping people up to tabs. People ask me, what are you playing now? And I've been saying, Dead Space OG or Dead Space Remake. And apparently Dead Space Remake just hit Xbox Game Pass.
Yeah, like yesterday.
Yeah. And somebody at work was super excited to find that out and downloaded it immediately. And I was like, if it's been a while since you've played OG, you're going to play this one and be like, damn, I don't remember that. And that's probably a change. But it's so minor that you're like misremembering it being in the OG one. Like, that's how good this remake is.
That was most of my experience playing it, yeah. And I literally went in from playing a New Game Plus on 2008 Dead Space.
Right.
To 2 hours later playing this one. And I was like, oh, wow, it looks really good. And then as time went on, I was like, I don't remember this being like that. But
right.
but also, am I dumb? Did I forget this? Am I crazy? And yeah, it's more than just like, wow, they changed it so subtly I couldn't tell. It's more like it feels like the games are communicating with each other.
It's a logical change, or it's like they didn't have the capacity to do that back then, but it makes perfect sense to do it now that the game engine can handle it.
Right. I mean, I think the biggest and easiest example of that is the fact that this is basically open now. Each chapter does have a clear break, but it's not... You don't have to use the tram system to go between chapters, and during each chapter segment, other than the last two, you can travel to anywhere else in the ship whenever the hell you want.
And do side quests.
There's a handful of side quests, and you can just re-explore stuff or go further than you did before, unlike in the original version of the game where it is chapter 2 finish, I am now in chapter 3 hydroponics, and you can't leave until the chapter's over. This one adds a couple of side passageways to sneak between sections, or you can just use the tram and go to them. Like, the whole game renders at the same time, or makes you think that it does. And that's really impressive.
Feel like a ship that you're exploring. It's really cool.
It is very cool. It definitely makes the chapter breaks seem less just not necessarily obvious, because like an achievement pops every time, but like it makes it feel more of like a cohesive experience, like, whereas
less of a hard chop. It's much smoother, more cohesive,
especially because in the original each chapter I think had a fairly distinct gameplay type. Like they would switch up either a feature that you hadn't encountered yet, or they'd rapidly change it over to something else, whereas like your encounters in hydroponics versus like the Leviathan fight versus like the medical bay are all very different, whereas now they actually kind of blend together, and not in like it's all gray homogenate type way, but more like the whole game takes place in one camera shot. This is a thing that Halo Infinite tried to do and kind of failed at, but like you can play the whole game all the way through and go through the whole fucking ship. It's not an open world, but it is a lot of very interconnected levels, and I think it's really impressive how well they stitch them together without making it feel like they said they built this thing from the ground up, but they kept 85% of the skeleton and then they added to it instead of taking away from it.
I would say the biggest change is the 0G sections where you don't
Big Jump.
What's that movie? What's the freaking Ender's Game? You don't Ender's Game from wall to wall. You are able to free float and jetpack around, and it's very exciting and cool.
From Dead Space 2. You'll
really?
find that out, yeah. Yeah, they ported over. That's why when you go through the accessibility controls and you can switch up how the controls work, it has the default controls that they made for this game, and then it has like custom controls, and then Dead Space 1 and Dead Space 2 controls for all the different
weird
interacting systems. I switched it over to Dead Space 1 controls because that's what I had just been playing.
Yeah, it took me a minute to get used to the new modern controls where square is reload like in any first person shooter.
I don't like the controls they made for this game. I know why they did, because
I got used to it quickly. It was good.
It works. It's all functional. One of my only complaints about the original game was that there were some parts that felt too first person shootery and not horror-ish enough. Like it just kind of, not shooting galleries exactly, but it felt like it was more optimized for you to be shooting things than to be scared. Like the fact that you have a reload button without going into the menus, which they didn't remove in any version of this game, but like that it encourages you subtly to shoot things because you can reload while you're running, like stuff like that, where it doesn't require you to stop, open up the HUD, go into your menu, like to get a stasis refill or whatever, or oxygen or whatever. Like it's the little things like that they didn't change any of that in the remake. But I think that that's more what the quote-unquote new controls are like aiming for, and I just didn't like it right out the gate. I just switched it back to the old ones because it makes it feel more of like a unique experience.
I don't understand what you're saying because they had a reload button in the OG.
Yes, but like, wow, left stick press in is sprint. Wow, how original. Like it feels generic. It functions, obviously, it plays like shooter controls, but like I like that. I used to hate this, but now I like when games have their own control systems.
I think what you're saying is kind of the brainworm that I had from the OG Dead Space, where it's like I felt like I was gripping my controller in like a claw motion. Like,
yes,
I definitely held onto it differently, and that subtly added to the tension just because I was clutching it differently.
There you go. You nailed it.
But,
I like the unique control system, not because it's clunky by necessity, but because it feels more strategic to use the control. It's not muscle memory.
Right.
Whereas this is like you're in a new scenario, for Isaac anyways. You're in a very crazy, whacked out, what the fuck's going on? It's like, I don't remember how everything works. How am I supposed to do this thing that I've never done before? Like, it makes you think about how you're using the controls versus muscle memory. Wow, I'm sprinting because I'm holding left stick forward and pressing in.
In OG Dead Space, there were plenty of times where I would do the wrong key.
Exactly.
Thinking of modern controls and then pull up a freaking chair in the air and be like, fuck! No! Reload! I'm gonna die.
Yes. And I just prefer that type of an experience in general, but especially with horror games. I just think it works better. So I switched it over maybe an hour in to just regular Dead Space 1 controls. But yeah, the 0G sections were completely reworked to have Dead Space 2 controls and free floating and stuff.
I found that Remake held your hand in the story much more. I was kind of bothered right off the bat. As soon as you get off of that ship in the intro, there's a file that you can pick up, and it hands you the entirety of the story of what this game is gonna be. The Church of Unitology, and Isaac is batshit crazy, and his mom was batshit crazy, and his doctor is actually his girlfriend. Like, it gives you everything in the opening minutes, and OG Dead Space did not give that to you. As I experienced OG Dead Space, I was like, what is this cult shit? Like, where did this come from? This is crazy, this is cool. But it comes in at like chapter 7 or 8 of 12. Whereas the remake, it was like, oh, by the way, here's all this batshit crazy shit.
So you front-loaded me with that knowledge, and I went in expecting it, and I understand why that's frustrating, but I think it's more so just the story took a different approach in general, more so than it tries to, I don't know. There's so many very small changes to the story. Well, like, the overview is the same.
It rewards you for paying attention to all the files and all the things.
It does, but I also think, despite the fact that that's my preferential way to experience, like, game stories, like, the stupid, you gotta read all the codex files to figure out what the fuck's going on, like, that's my shit. I kind of understand why Remake took the way that it did, because a lot of the characters that you meet in the campaign are pretty drastically reworked, not in their motivations, but in the way that they act. Like, the cutscenes and the dialogue is very drastically reworked to make them, mostly at least attempting to make them more rounded characters. They're not just like a stereotype of like, well, here's the crazy doctor guy, and it's like, I like the mystery, but in retrospect, it does kind of feel like the original Dead Space was doing it more so out of an obligation to add something in. Like,
I think it was more shock value in the OG.
Kind of.
Whereas, like, you're going on a boat, you kind of expect aliens, but actually, the humans is the monsters because they made this crazy cult.
Yes. I think I know, I'm going to do the thing.
Yeah?
The easy comparison.
In Halo.
Yeah. I think it's easier to compare it, say, with, like, Halo CE versus, like, Halo 3's ways of telling you about the story going on. CE was way more gameplay focused.
Yep.
And the story wasn't necessarily an afterthought, but it was very...
Background.
Yeah, background. And when it comes to a horror game like Dead Space, you can get a lot of horror out of just not knowing what the fuck's going on. But I think if you just kind of contrast it, like now, if I play through Halo CE 2 and 3, I like mentally project my image backwards. Like, the way that I view Halo CE is more through the lens of the newer games, if that makes any semblance of sense. Like, it feels more like playing Dead Space Remake. It feels more like, oh, that's what was going on. It wasn't that I wasn't catching on to. It's that the game didn't have it in it. Like, the game was forcing you to kind of make up the story as you went.
Right.
Not because it was lazy or anything. It's just, it was a lot more focused on the gameplay and the internal, like, gameplay mechanisms rather than making a coherent story. And now, the story is a lot less subtle, obviously, but the vast majority of the changes feel kind of warranted. Like, it's not... I don't feel comfortable comparing them, is my like... They feel like different ways of telling stories.
It's just very strange.
No, it is definitely strange.
It felt like they gave you too much too soon, is what I'm saying. Because OG Dead Space, you have the DNA symbol or whatever, the icon, the
marker,
idol, the marker, whatever, all over the place. And you're like, the frig is that? People went cuckoo here.
Yeah.
But it turned out they were already cuckoo.
I don't know. It just... I like both. And it's weird, because I didn't think I would. I thought I was going to be like, have the same reaction. Be like, wow, this just kind of showed me everything I was thinking anyways. And it's like, there's a couple of spots where it does just like kind of beat you over the head with what's going on.
Yeah.
But some of it works better that way. Because there's a lot of it that it doesn't even address. Like in the original game, I don't know if, because I haven't played Dead Space 2 or 3 all the way through. There's a lot of backstory that's given in Remake that I don't know if it's original to Remake or it's information that comes in later. And like, I respect that as wanting to kind of push that stuff backwards.
For a fact,
like Isaac's family's backstory. I don't
a-
think that's in the original game at all.
I know for a fact there's an audio log in Remake that comes directly from the Dead Space 2 intro.
Yeah, I can believe it.
It's another recording of Nicole, and it's legit the intro to Dead Space 2.
That makes sense.
And everybody's like, "Ooh, are we gonna get Dead Space 2 remake? Go.
It feels like it bridges the transition between the two games a lot better. And yeah, they're probably gonna do another remake.
I am disappointed to say that I had several bugs in Dead Space Remake.
Oh boy.
Which we proudly reported there weren't really any in OG. It's like a perfect unbreakable game. The speed run of it is boring and it takes like 3 hours to do because it's unbreakable.
Yeah. I didn't have much, so please do tell.
I had enemies that had weird or buggy path tracing, especially the little scorpion bastards in 0G. They would jump to the top of a platform, like halfway in a room, and then I'd be under that platform, and they would like glitch to the side and to the top of the platform. A couple of weird things like that. I had just the basic freaking army guys with the claws above their heads that make the classic hands out monster walk. I had a couple of times where they couldn't walk around something and I would just shoot their heads off. A couple of other things like that. I had, especially later in the game, I would open up the boxes on the wall and the loot inside would literally spawn in front of me and be like dropping through the air onto the shelf inside of the box.
Okay, I think I saw that once or twice. That's
I
fair.
saw it quite a few times, especially as the game went on.
Weird. I think, not to excuse it, but I think the first two things, that sounds like it's because the geometry was more intricate in Remake than in the original.
True.
Which was my concern after, like, I had bumped into like a gameplay video before I had played it, and I was like, it kind of looks like they just like they added like a butt ton of texture mapping where it's like it's supposed to give you the impression of like depth and there's a hole here, when in reality after playing it, no, you can like shoot through grates. Like there's the geometry is stupidly intricate.
Yeah, this is not Halo 2 Remake.
No, it feels a lot more like if for that sort of a bug, it actually seems more like the AI, the enemy programming doesn't know how to adapt to all of the geometry that they put in place.
Yeah.
That's interesting, I think.
I would say 3 or 4 times, no, probably more than 4 times, I had a sound bug, especially like a low life, the beep from you get from having very low life. I would heal up and it would still keep beeping. I would have to save quit and log back in or load in to get rid of that low life sound. Yeah, I definitely had a couple of sound bugs too.
Weird. The only bug I encountered the whole time was, I think in chapter 2 or so, I went into an area that I had already been before. Not like I backtracked to a different section of the ship, but more like into a room I had previously been. Mm-hmm. And when I went through the door, like all the geometry disappeared. Like your classic video game bug.
Wow.
Like I turned on my flashlight and then I look forward and there's nothing. And I could move forward and I bump into where the geometry should be, but nothing loaded in. And it was really weird. I just had to save and quit and it fixed itself.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny more than anything else. And I was like,
have that.
That's like the classic like video game bug where it's like,
the only other thing I had was like, especially in elevators, I'd be aiming at the door, waiting for the monster to be like, wah! As soon as the elevator door opens, and my flashlight would kind of wig out. But just
yeah.
These are such minor complaints.
It's like a polish thing.
Yeah, it's a smear in the polish. The rest of it is just gorgeous.
So that kind of leads me to my biggest positive for this game. And outside of gameplay in and of itself, this game's actually fucking scary. Like, a lot. So I'm a chicken. This is known. Mm-hmm. Dead Space, the original, gets me because a lot of it's conceptual horror. It's got its Lovecraftian shit going on. It's like, but what if cults were bad? And also it's gross. But because it's an old enough game, it can't generate like no light. Like it has to, there's always a level of light going on in a room. And then in the vast majority of Dead Space Remake, shit's just black.
Dark.
Like you have
to use the flashlight.
And it sounds dumb, but like it genuinely makes the experience a fuck ton scarier, even if I think some of the enemy AI is a little bit worse than it used to be, or the behaviors are changed in a way that I don't necessarily like. It actually made me jump a lot.
Yep.
Like I blew through the game in like 5 sessions or whatever, but like I was shitting myself the whole time. Whereas in the original, it's more like I don't know. It feels like the gamma was always kind of turned up in the settings. You know, like when you set your adjustable...
You can see that it's dark, but you can still see in the dark.
Right, you're like, it's supposed to be dark. Where, like Halo 3 ODST...
Oh my gosh.
Rain doesn't exist. There is no rain in that game. But when you think about the game, you probably think of rain. It's because it's the way that they did, filter. Like... Yeah, there's a filter and there's like skyboxes and whatever, but there's no actual rain in the game. In original Dead Space, it's like, wow, this is dark. In Dead Space Remake, it's like, I have to slowly walk forward aiming at things because I can't see anything. Like, you can run into a room and only like view it by your illuminated like life bar. Horrible idea. Even if you think you know what the room looks like, it's a bad idea. And that makes a lot of like, it's jump scares, but they're good. It's like, boom, lights turn on and there's shit everywhere. Like what?
This reminds me of a change that I really like. They have switchboards now for power, and you can choose, do you want the lights to stay on or the air to stay on? But you definitely need to power on the elevator. You only get 2.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you want to suffocate or do you want to use your flashlight as you run? And it's cool that they give you choices like a Saw movie.
That's true. I think it's weird because it feels like one of the most, I don't remember this, type changes. It's not like it's this is a very modern, complicated system of gameplay mechanics. It's like, this is pretty basic shit. Like,
yeah.
But it works really well because it also
adds to the tension.
It also gives you a little bit of an illusion of choice where it's like, it's not in every corridor it'll give you a switchboard,
right,
but it's in a lot of the bigger areas that you'll come back to. So then you have to deal with the repercussions of like, oh shit, it's a vacuum in here now. And then that means, maybe you have 0G so you can fly around, which means you can pick up other collectibles you couldn't before, or the lights are off, which means you have to walk around really slow, but you don't have to rush because there's oxygen in the room. Like, it's really simple, but it works really fucking well throughout the entire game, all the way up until the end. My proper gameplay mechanic that I really enjoyed the change to is melee actually does something now.
I don't agree with you on this one.
Not amazingly so, but as particularly early in the game before you get a lot of ammunition, or before you have like a good back stock of shootable things, when you have your 5 weapons and your billion ammo. Like early in the game, I ran out of ammo and I'd have to beat things with my hands. In the original game, melee is fucking useless. It does nothing. Whereas in this game, it's not great, but it's fast enough where the animation will just keep swinging, and it does enough to... It takes a while to kill one enemy, but if you will have only one like slasher chasing you, you can kill it with melee without getting hit. It helps a little.
I had the upgrade where melee stuns enemies, and I tried using it. I was legit stun locking enemies as I was beating the shit out of them, and it still took a legit 8 hits, and it was like, come on. I had the same thing. I think it's more so just because it adds knockback, and then they have to get back up before you can hit them again. So it feels like it adds more time to it. There's also that achievement where you, Backbreaker, where you kill so many enemies by stomping on their back after cutting their legs off.
Yeah, it's like 20 enemies or whatever.
I thought it was less than that. But anyway, I tried. I don't think I even have one, because stomping on them doesn't do anything. It doesn't feel like it does anything. They would just just turn around and be like, ah, bitch, and hit me again. Like, it was so frustrating.
Stomping was definitely not great on the damage front. I feel like maybe it's just it feels like it's more effective because the animation is sped up a lot. Like, you can stomp an enemy 3 times before it can hit you, whereas in the original game it's like and it's fucking slow as shit to try to stop, and like the animation's just really big and clunky. And now, like, it's not smooth, but it's a lot smoother, and it goes off fast. I don't know. It made me feel like I had more options, even if I didn't. And that's a benefit on the games front, even if it tricked me into thinking I had more options than I did.
The OG one, the slow animations added to the tension of like, come on, hit him!
It did, but when it came to melee or stomping, they're useless in combat. Whereas
in the remake, the animations are sped up, but it doesn't feel like it. You still have that tension. It's very good.
Yeah. It's just, it's a tweak in approach.
Yes.
Not a tweak in approach. Weapons have been overhauled here, and they're all fucking fantastic. There's a couple of weapons in the original game that are a little underbaked. They have not great secondary fire modes.
I legit didn't use the secondary fire modes for, I don't think, any of these weapons. This is all you, buddy.
Sure.
Like, the wide plasma cutter, I used... Whatever that one, the line cutter?
Line cutter, yeah.
Yes. I used that secondary fire in the OG a lot more. Weird. I couldn't figure out how to use it in Remake, and I was scared of wasting ammo trying to figure it out. So
strange. They're trip mines. That's weird. I mean, it's that one I think is like the only one. I'd say that the Remake version of secondary fire is worse, but like they're just all more... Half of them have had either the damage or speed increased dramatically, and then the other half have been overhauled entirely. Like the force gun. Actually, the force gun is like the best example.
That one sends an asteroid, right?
No.
Or whatever.
No, the force gun is like the big
big shotgun thing.
When you were in like middle school and you went to a planetarium for a field trip, and they had like, it's an air cannon, and then like it's a big gun it's a bag that just poofs air at people,
right.
That's like what the force gun is.
Yes. What was the secondary fire for that?
I don't remember. But
I think it was the asteroid, asshole.
I don't know. But in the original game, the force gun is fucking useless. In this game, because they added so many new systems to the enemies, it strips their flesh off. Like the first hit. It's fucking revolting. Like, if you shoot a group of enemies with this, instead of it like just doing knockback damage or whatever, it rips their flesh and bones, it rips their flesh and their cartilage and shit off of their bodies, and then does knockback damage. Like, it's not necessarily more useful for gameplay, but it feels more impactful to the horror for me. Because I would use the force gun to beat like a bunch of enemies at once if there's a big group of slashers coming at me or whatever. And then they're just skeletons crawling at me.
A gravity well.
So it's a black hole.
Yes.
Makes sense. I don't think I used that feature that much. But like, they're skeletons now. That's spooky, because now you can't,
and they're still moving.
Yeah, I love that. It's really good.
I upgraded the force gun damage so much that I wanted it to be a shotgun, like 1 or 2 hit kills.
Yeah, I think at max damage it's a 3 or 4 hit, but maybe, I don't know. The one weapon that I did find more disappointing in this version, which was the one that I was expecting to not find, that I thought I was going to enjoy more, is the Ripper. The Buzzsaw Louie arm, so to speak.
Yes.
The big saw blade. The problem with it in the original is that depth perception is hard to perceive in the game. It's kind of hard to judge where it's going to hit, because the blade So your regular fire mode, you shoot the blade out, and then you're I guess holding it with like your force, the kinesis gun or whatever, and then it's slowly drifting away from you as it spins. It's really hard to fucking tell where it is though until you're touching something, and then it sends off sparks or blood or whatever.
Right.
It's really fucking hard to tell. In the remake, it's easier to see the blade because
it goes out a short distance, like 3 feet or whatever,
and I think it stays closer.
Just holds there.
Yeah, and the blade does, because the blade is like represented by more pixels. It's easier to see what the blade's doing. But I feel like the damage was dramatically decreased. Like, it feels useless now. In Remake, I was using its the Ripper's alt fire mode to just shoot the saw blade out. Like, because it then ricochets around and whatever. Like, I didn't use primary fire mode that much during this playthrough.
Yeah, I tried primary fire on it so many times, and I was like, this is useless, and I just put it in my storage with the flamethrower.
Yeah, which is weird, because in my previous playthrough of the original, that was my secondary, was the Ripper. It's still finicky, but it's just odd. I couldn't tell you why it felt so different.
It was weird. Ammo drops were really weird in this game, because I put that and the flamethrower in my storage, and I swear I got less ammo for those weapons after putting them in storage.
Yeah.
So that's a really cool thing. I hope that carries over to like the plasma cutter only run, where it's like it only drops plasma cutter if I store everything else in the storage.
Probably, or at least
hope so.
More so than before.
What was I gonna say?
I like the skill trees. The skill trees.
Yeah.
For everything.
There's
better.
Less.
Dead Space. But yeah,
thank you for listening. It's been a great episode.
Yeah. But particularly for the weapons, it feels like there's a lot less wasted space of like, oh, well, I have to spend an extra node to get to that thing.
Where now it sucks spending a hard-earned node on nothing.
Yeah.
Well, next time I'll get something cool out of this. That sucks.
And especially because in the original, nodes open security doors for like storage rooms and whatever. In Remake, they changed those doors to have a security clearance, and then they changed all the upgrade trees for weapons, stasis, kinesis, and your armor to only have available slots available. So you know, if you want to get the 1 extra damage, you get the 1 extra damage, or whatever. I actually felt the impact of the skill trees more in Remake than I did in the original. Not just because there's more actual upgrades to be done, but I think they changed the percentage buffs around a little bit.
Probably.
I really enjoyed actually upgrading my shit in this game, unlike before, where it didn't feel like it was super beneficial. Something I
didn't really approve of is
my sex life?
No, well, that too. The upgrade trees have parts hidden through the map that are hidden or locked behind the doors that you have to complete the side quest to get the security clearance to get all the parts. And on top of that, the last suit upgrade is hidden in New Game Plus. You have to start playing New Game Plus to get the last suit. So you legit have to play through New Game Plus to get the achievement to get fully upgraded everything.
I actually like that change.
I really, really hit the end of the story like, did I miss the last suit upgrade? Meh. And then it was like, you got the last suit upgrade because you finished the story. I was like, oh, come on. All right, New Game Plus, let's go.
I like that it encouraged me to come back because it also sets you up with a very big, it's not just the last suit upgrade, it's also a fuck ton of credits. So and you can,
you don't keep your security clearance so that you can clean up everything. You have to do the security clearance side quest again and then hunt everything down with a walkthrough.
Skill issue. If you did all the side quests first, this wouldn't be a problem. Because I did all the side quests first, because I'm smart. There's only like 5 of them. They're pretty short. It's not that much. They only added 3 hours of gameplay for the side quests, maybe. It's not that much. It just...
One of them's locked behind a story. A chapter. I warned you about it, not realizing... I thought I had missed it, but no, it was in a later chapter.
Yes. I don't know. I get what you're saying. I think the last suit upgrade is lame to add behind New Game Plus. I liked the way that they broke up the upgrade tree. So you have, like, base upgrade tree, and then there's each weapon has 2 or 3 specials.
Yeah.
One you'll pick up in the world, and then the other one you have to buy as the story progresses from the shop. And then the other one is locked behind like a master security clearance crate that you have to go back for.
Yeah.
I liked that because in chapter 10, before the game hits the point of no return.
Right. It legit warns you, you cannot explore the Ishimura anymore.
Yeah, you're leaving, buddy. Like, I went back and I checked everything. I got all the crates, and I liked having everything ready to go because I knew I was going to get a crap ton of ammo and nodes and whatever through the last 2 chapters because they're basically just story missions. And then I'd be able to start the game off. And then it dumped like a big crate of stuff on top of me as the New Game Plus started. It went, by the way, here's 50,000 credits, 10 nodes, a new suit, and all the shit you already had. Go for it.
I thought I was starting New Game Plus with the security clearance so I could clean up all the doors that you walk by.
Nope.
That would have been nice. But no, I have to get the security clearance again and now get the last 3 weapon upgrades. So, meh.
Preference. Skill issue. Speaking of the side quests, I really like them.
Yes, especially the one that investigates Nicole and what she was doing, and it again, if you investigate this, it kind of ruins the ending, but you know with the side quest that she and Isaac weren't doing well and something was wrong here, and it was a really good cinematic. It's actually one of the screenshots I took, a long video of her talking, and it's very good, much like.
I think that's my favorite change in the game in general is the game really, if you play the side quests at the rate that the game wants you to, as you progress through story missions, it really makes you, the player, as Isaac, like, reconnect with Nicole in what she was doing before shit happens later in the game. Like, I actually felt like I was getting to know the character.
Yes.
And then the twists happen. Versus in the original game, it's like a fantasy. Which is kind of the point. It's supposed to be this idealistic, whoa, I bet Nicole was my favorite femboy wifey, and everything was wonderful. And, like, the game kind of tricks you into making up bullshit, basically. Whereas in this game, it focuses on Nicole through a lot of the side quests and is like, this is what she was like, this is what she was up to, here's her personality, here's how she interacted with her coworkers. Oh, yeah, by the way... Big twist. Like, I don't know. I really liked that. It was very engaging for me. And it ties into a fairly minor change that Nicole and Isaac are a lot older than they were in the first game. Originally. Which is mostly just because the voice actors have aged. And they didn't want to, I guess, try to fuck around with that. Like, they just used the same voice actors from 2 and 3 who have done the work the whole time. So in Dead Space Remake... Isaac has a voice, which I was very not happy with until I was very happy with. I didn't expect to like it.
I was going to say, we are 40 minutes in, and we're like, oh yeah, Isaac talks.
That's like the biggest change in the game.
And it doesn't freaking matter.
It works well.
Fine.
Like, yeah, it is the voice actor from 2 and 3, which is nice. It makes it...
That's cool.
Yeah, but because he's older now, it makes the characters age differently. Like, it gives it a different vibe where it's not like, oh, Nicole and Isaac, they were so young and everything went wrong. And now it's like, wow, look at these people who have had lives. Shit sucks, by the way. Like, I don't know. It gives it a different vibe, which I like. But yeah, Isaac's dialogue is mostly dialogue that's already in the game. They just give it to Isaac. Like, they make him an active participant in the story. Whereas in the original game, I think the biggest complaint from, like, the general public was that Isaac feels like a puppet, where it's like, Go on this fetch quest.
Kinda
Go
like
on this fetch quest.
OG Bioshock.
Go on this fetch quest.
Could you kindly?
Yeah, like, go do this thing. Go do this thing. Go do this thing. And he never argues. He doesn't backtalk.
Just spins on a dime. Okay,
Yeah,
I
and
go do the thing.
Literally the whole original game, he's just like doing shit for people because they tell him to do it. And in this game, it's like he comes up with half of these ideas himself, and the other half he argues relentlessly.
Why the fuck don't we just release the asteroid with a beeper on it?
Yeah, like, it's impressive, I think, that they didn't have to add much to the game to make him an actual character. Mm-hmm. Usually I do prefer, like, I like the silent protagonist self-insert thing. I like that in a lot of my games. But in Remake, he is very, I'm gonna do this thing because you said that I shouldn't do the thing, but I think it's better. Fuck you. And it makes him just feel like a person and an active participant in the story instead of like a pizza delivery boy.
Yep.
You know? Wicked cool.
Is it worth $70?
Dude, this is so worth $70. This is... I have my gripes, but like, this is one of the best games I played in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
And there's been good games the past few years. Even this season of this show, I've played a few very good games. Like Jedi Fallen Order, Control, really good. This is probably the top of the list.
Dang.
It's neck and neck with the original. It seriously is like, well, I kind of prefer this change, but I also prefer this other change.
I honestly kind of think that we should have given it a month just to be able to savor it better.
Maybe. It's so close.
Yeah.
It's impressive. Ugh. Man, I wanted to go in and be like, yeah, everyone's claiming that this thing is great, and actually, I think it's dumb. Because, I mean, even that was my initial thought. I'm like, oh, Isaac has a voice now. This is stupid. And then the game went on. I'm like, I love this. Fuck. I can't have a contrarian opinion about this. It's really good. It's well polished. It's coherent. It adds a lot of stuff to the story. It's extremely high effort, and it understands the horror of the original game well. It doesn't undercut it by turning it into an action game, which is what I was worried about because of the sped up gameplay. I thought it was going to turn more into a shooter game, and it's actually scarier than the original, just because of technological changes. The Leviathan has big tentacles.